So this NBA Live 18 demo has been out for a little bit over a week now, and I got a chance to actually play it. I didn't want to put out a rushed out review and a rushed out video either praising or trashing the game. So I took my time, actually played it, and I played, and I really did play it and put the time into it. Now keep in mind that before I even get started that I have absolutely zero, and I mean zero, allegiance to either EA or 2K, and all of my opinions and experiences is completely objective, although I'm pretty sure there's going to be some fanboyism going on in the comments of this video some way, somehow. It's just inevitable. And I'm also aware that this is a demo, but the finished product in NBA Live 16 was the same thing we got that the demo showed us, so you got to keep that in mind. I actually had the opportunity to play NBA Live during EA Play back in June, and although it was for a limited time, and it was the Drew League game that we played, that myself and other members of the Game Illuminati, we came back with a few things that I liked and a few things that I didn't. But before even playing the game, I had a chance to interview Ryan Santos, one of the community guys at EA Play representing NBA Live, and to our surprise, he was actually pretty cool and a humble dude, asking us for our opinions, which was a complete 180 from the dude that was a community manager during NBA Live 16, the Hoop God. That guy was so full of himself before the game came out. And once NBA Live 16 flopped, he disappeared into the wind, pretty much never to be seen again. Now let's start off by going into the experience with an open mind and not to give it so much slack for the debacle known as NBA Live 16. I know it's hard to do, but you gotta admit Live 16 had by far the best customization out there in a sports game, as well as a soundtrack that was equally impressive. Now I know that isn't nearly enough, but when you take the summer circuit into consideration, you gotta admit that they were kinda on to something. You also have to go into the gaming experience itself, not thinking that the game is NBA 2K by any means. And once you do that, your judgment won't be so clouded and one-sided. The first thing you gotta realize that you are not playing NBA 2K. And so many people get frustrated once they play it and not being able to do the things they're able to pull off in playing 2K, that they become enraged, calling the game trash, instead of learning the game mechanics and just adapting, which is what true gamers do, not just by pouting and spewing unwarranted hate. I do agree there are some things that 2K does right fairly easily that NBA Live just can't seem to pinpoint even to this day, but there are some redeeming qualities in NBA Live 18, and I'll name a few. The presentation. There's little to no doubt that when it comes to a presentation comparison, EA is always ahead of the pack with its sports games, and Live is no different. The influx of the first take show and the storyline in the one mode is pretty good, although it's entirely too long for my taste after every game. Also, the way they introduce the different parks and leagues are pretty good as well, with backstory on each park from that particular city. The customization. Like I stated before, it's not even close when you look at the customization aspect of the game, starting from the face scan app that when it's working correctly, is pretty spot on. And before anyone goes there, nothing works day one in games these days when everyone floods it all at the same time. 2K's app crashed on people as well the first day. As a matter of fact, 2K bit the whole cell phone face scan anyway because they had us using that trash bag PS4 camera and the Kinect that took some of us hours just to get a decent face scan. The shoes, gear, tattoos, and hairstyles make it to where you shouldn't see three people looking exactly the same out there on the court. Even though the whole loot crate aspect of getting gear is kind of meh with me, but I guess I can just deal with it. It's not that big a deal. I can kind of get used to it. Soundtrack. The way the music flows within the game makes it enjoyable, and it never feels like a chore to listen to during long sessions because the music always changes after a few bars. It's kind of like it's an interactive experience within the game itself. They tend to do a really good job as far as blending in newer artists as well as established artists, underground artists, and etc. So I have no problem with that whatsoever, man. If soundtrack is really good and anybody that's a true hip-hop fan or whatever genre you like, you shouldn't get tired of listening to it. The gameplay. Now there's definitely some things from a gameplay standpoint that I didn't like, but there are some things that they've done right, and I'll start off with the overall feel of the game. When you make a character that's 7 foot tall, it's 260 pounds, it feels like you're going up someone that's 7 foot tall, 260 pounds, and against a smaller opponent in the post, bigs don't just run around at the speed of light and the similar agility as a 6'2" point guard, and it's kind of like what they did in the previous NBA Live game, so we gotta at least give them props for that. You also level up by simply playing the game. And the better teammate grades you get, the better chance you have at maximizing that potential. So if you're out there chucking up shots, you're going to get penalized for it. If you're playing smart defense, making the right pass, so on and so forth, you get rewarded for it. You're not going to go out there and in day one by yourself all the way to an 88 overall. It's just not going to happen in this game. The game also has some incentive-based rewards, which is pretty cool as well, to give you other things to do within the game. So with all that being said, I try never to nitpick on an unfinished game, but when you see it, you gotta say something. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with it upon release. So let me touch on some of the things I didn't like. The graphics. Now, anyone in their right mind can't expect for them to surpass or even be on the same par as 2K as far as the graphics, but it isn't even close in this area. While some of the player face renders are spot on or really close, there are some that isn't even close by no stretch. I mean, like PS2 level, not close. I seen the Draymond Green face scan and I couldn't stop laughing at how bad it was. My face scan that I did for myself was actually more on point than his was. The camera. This was one of the things that myself and TBH expressed to Ryan Santos about the game when playing NBA Live 16 in hopes that they would change it in this year's game. But lo and behold, the bad camera angles are back, and not only are the cameras bad, but the whole who to guard dynamic is equally as bad. Almost every game I played, especially during the Chris Move and LSK challenge at Venice Beach, I ended up not even knowing where I was on the court sometimes, mainly in part to the way you know who the guard is often you often left on an island, and it has these color-coded lines that sometimes blends in with the color of the court you're playing on. I actually had the exact same color line as that light blue court, and it switches you so often, but it can just be completely hard to keep up. I like to play on what is called today as a 2K camera, where they call it baseline high or baseline low. And it's not only just a color thing that's confusing as hell, but the fact that the camera doesn't even follow you. It just follows where the ball goes. And that's unacceptable in 2017, seeing that I can play games 5 years older and they get that right, where the camera eventually pans where you are in order for you to get back into the play. Next, we got the online aspect of it. Me and my friends were often getting either dropped out of the games midway in or before the game even started, and at times this became frustrating. Not to mention that the input lag is extremely bad, and I mean extremely bad. Now I heard people, I'm playing on the PS4, I heard people on the Xbox One don't have it nearly as bad, but it's still unacceptable at this point. The lag makes it almost impossible for you to make jump shots on a consistent basis because of the bad timing or lack thereof. This is something that we talked about during our first impressions of the game back right after we all came back from E3, and we were criticized for it, saying that we were hating, but it's still in the game, and I know I'm not going crazy because everyone's having that issue. We had the exact same issue when we were playing that game during EA Play. Next up is the gameplay. Now, I'll start off by saying that the game speed is entirely too slow. Entirely too slow. It's like the sliders are turned down to like a 40, that type slow. And I'm trying to keep, like I said before, you just got to keep in mind that this is the demo, but there has to be something that speeds this game up. I mean, even when you try and push the ball up the floor after a basket, you still end up in that walk the ball up animation until you cross half court. The way you go for a steal on defense is pretty much laughable.
Down on the screen, that's a penalty.
Oh my God.
What
the fuck was that? Who was guarding him? That was you?
Yeah.
That's his name.
You tried to steal the ball, didn't you?
Yeah.
He said, yeah.
Lunging with two hands, and I can understand they don't want you to be able to spam the steal button. I can get with that fully, but I get that, but come on, if I time it right and I still don't get the steal, then I'm pretty much 10 feet away from the ball handler, which is crazy. There's got to be something that balances that out. I mentioned earlier about the height and weight playing a difference, and it only matters some of the time. I play as a wing scorer that I switch from a wing shooter, and given enough room, I can pretty much go through anyone when the animation is in my favor. The same thing happens when I see Russell Westbrook plowing through everyone in the paint like no one's around. So the whole rock, paper, scissors aspect on defense is a hit or miss. It feels rewarding when it's in your favor, but most part, it's extremely rare, and you mostly get burned. On offense, it's extremely inconsistent. Sometimes you drive to the lane and go for a layup or dunk. Other times it stops you and make you pull up for an 8-foot jumper or an ill-advised reverse layup. Not to mention that the passing is horrible in the game as well. Instead of passing to the obvious teammate, you pass the ball to the opposite side of the court more times than not.
No.
That was supposed to go to Ken. Why did he go to him?
I saw every time we try.
At least in 2K, you know what to expect because you control the right stick to do a reverse layup, a dunk, Euro step. And in NBA Live 18, you base everything off of chance and whatever the game wants you to do at that particular moment. Made contested layups and jump shots happen way too often, even when you play lockdown defense. The animations really need some work as well. The jump shots, dunks, dribble animations just seem off and clunky to me at times. In closing, one of the questions I asked Ryan Santos was how much the game would cost, because I felt that one of the main reasons that NBA Live 16 didn't sell so well is because they wanted full retail for a game that flopped 2 years in a row and shouldn't be priced as the same as its counterpart NBA 2K. And although he didn't give me an exact answer on the spot, I had a feeling that they would drop the price in order to get even the most jaded fans to consider purchasing the game for 40 bucks if you pre-order. Now, I said all that to say this. I want EA to succeed with NBA Live 18, and I also want NBA 2K to stop being on BS and go back to making great games as well. So if you ask me if NBA Live 18 is a day one purchase, I'll say for $40, yes, because there is some redeeming qualities about the game. There is some things that's really good with the game. But there has to be some major changes to some of the core mechanics. The camera settings and the online has to be on point in order for this game to have a shelf life for more than a couple of months. We've seen some popular 2K YouTubers promoting this game, and where I can see a couple of them having good intentions, most of them are just cashing in on the new flavor of the month until NBA 2K18 comes out, kind of like they did when NBA Playgrounds came out. And how many of them are still playing that game? Exactly. Look, I haven't played NBA 2K17 since March, and that was due to overall of BS that was instilled into the game with the non-stop patches along with the other mess. So I am truly rooting for Live or any other alternative basketball game to make me want to play for longer than 4 months without wanting to break my damn disc. If you expect the NBA Live 18 to surpass NBA 2K just this year as the best basketball game, you're just not being realistic. It's two completely different games going in two completely different directions. Live isn't a true basketball simulator and probably never will be. So if sim is more your style, then 2K is the way to go. If you like a more arcade, simplistic game type, then Live is for you. Hopefully, man, this all helped you. I'm not trying to sway your vote. Like I said, I'm being completely objective with the whole thing. It's just my personal opinion. If you agree, sound off in the comment section. I'm Flock, and I'm out, y'all. Peace.